Artificial intelligence technology has become increasingly important in a modern world due to its numerous applications and benefits and is quickly changing how we live our lives. It also has the potential to transform various fields and revolutionize several industries, including healthcare, transportation, education, marketing, entertainment, and the list is never ending. Well, welcome to today's episode of Analytics Inside, where we dive deep into the ever evolving landscape of artificial intelligence and how it's shaping industries, businesses, and the world at large. And I'm your host, Priya Dealani. Now, AI is no longer a futuristic concept. It's here and it's impacting everything from the way we communicate to business make decisions. But how does AI truly work behind the scenes? And more importantly, how can companies harness its power effectively? Let's welcome Steve Sule, co-founder of Realfast.ai, to talk more about the AI landscape at large. Hi, Steve. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Priya?
I'm doing good too. Thank you, Steve. And it's a pleasure to have you with us on a podcast today. And I think
Thank
we're
you for
going to talk
having me.
more about, yeah, definitely. Before we talk more about the behind the scenes of AI and about the AI startup culture, it would be great if you can tell us more about, Real Fast AI. What exactly is a company about, its specialization or particular solutions the company offers?
Sure. So, Realfast AI is a AI transformation platform, which we are designing to help IT services companies sort of hire AI agents on demand. The overall objective is to sort of speed up the delivery process for IT services companies and sort of enhance their quality of the output of what they are producing. Our flagship product, which we are starting with, is called Vayu, and it focuses on the Salesforce services vertical. We plan to expand sort of horizontally across the entire value chain of Salesforce services, and then move across vertically to sort of SAP, ServiceNow, and Workday. So the easiest way to think about what we do is that we create agents that can be hired on demand by IT services firms to work with IT services firms to deliver their projects on a more time efficient basis at a higher quality basis.
Great. Thank you for that insightful overview of Real Fast AI and basically its focus areas. And it's quite clear that you're doing some quite remarkable work in the artificial intelligence sector and its impact. And I think given the rapid advancements and as well as the growing complexity, I would say in this field, I'm also like more curious to know more about you, Steve. And I think you are a venture capitalist turned into a founder. So we would like to know more about your journey till date. How's your role and contribution towards the company today at Realfast AI?
Sure. Yeah. So sort of outside in perspective of how I came to join Realfast.ai. So as you mentioned, my background is predominantly in finance. I started my career in investment banking in India. I worked for a couple of banks in India, Yes Bank being one of them. I then moved on to the corporate buy side. So I was part of Mahindra and Mahindra's internal M&A team. And I was there during a time when they went on their massive acquisition spree. So they did a whole bunch of acquisitions across a variety of sectors, from auto components to their failed bid for Jaguar Land Rover to the eventual acquisition of Satyam. All of these sort of inorganic opportunities that M&M were evaluating at the time, I was part of their internal M&A team that was sort of driving that process, helping the sectors do these acquisitions. I then moved on to the UK, where I started working for a TMT focused boutique investment bank called Arma Partners. And again, we were focused on M&A activity for the mid-market tech firms in Europe at the time. I moved back to India in 2014 with the intention of starting my own advisory firm. My idea was to sort of create an Indian version of Lazard, which focused on specifically on advisory. But I learned very quickly that in India, it's very difficult to get paid for just advice. You either have to come with a balance sheet or with some other offering where you can offer services that go beyond just pure advice. So it's within that framework that I somehow got into early stage investments and was able to partner with a Singapore-based early stage fund called Edith Grove Capital. There is not that much information about what Edith Grove Capital ends up doing because they keep it pretty private. But it's a single family office LP that looked at investing in startups in Southeast Asia and India. The basic thesis was that, look, you have two very growing markets, one in Southeast Asia and one in India, that is going to explode at some point. And so we made a series of investments from 2016 onwards in this space. It's actually on one of those trips that I bumped into my other two co-founders, Sidhu and Akash, serendipitously on a flight from Bangalore to Singapore. And we got along really well. So Sidhu and me hit it off really well. And then from meeting Sidhu, I got to meet Akash. And one of the weird coincidences is that the company that they were working for, Gojek, was actually a company that I knew really well because a couple of my juniors in school had actually founded the company. And so, we started ideating a lot about like what was going on in Gojek, what these guys were thinking about doing afterwards. And at the time, I very much had my VC hat on. So I was obviously very curious as to what these guys would end up doing after they came out of Gojek, whenever that would be. Fast forward in time, COVID happened and all sorts of crazy things happened. But eventually, when both Akash and Sidhu left Gojek, um, I was just sort of ideating with them as to what it is that they wanted to do next. Weirdly, the beginnings of what Realfast was kind of started at that stage, but it was very services dominant. They had a very clear idea that they wanted to build out a services business, specifically focusing on high growth companies in Southeast Asia. But then Chat GPT dropped, and they realized that this is a pivotal moment in a services business's kind of life cycle, which is going to rapidly evolve with the use of AI. So just based on my background of like sort of ideating with them from the beginning, I eventually ended up joining them full time as a co-founder earlier this year, specifically looking after the finance and strategy functions. One of the areas that we see a lot of sort of opportunity in is in the sort of financing of some of these services companies and how they're going to actually be able to use AI going forward. And so it was just a natural fit from their sort of technology and product background and my sort of finance and strategy background. It was a kind of great sort of fit for all three of us to sort of come together. And one of the sort of cool things is that when you are in the VC space or in the investment space, you always sort of admire the founders that are sort of operating and sort of having a hands-on experience of certain things. And, from the outside in, it looked like a lot of fun what they were doing in Gojek. I'm sure they had their moments of craziness in that journey, but like it just looked like they had a really good team and really good sort of camaraderie between them. And it's always something that I wanted to explore. So when the opportunity was there, I definitely was very happy to take it.
Great. I think quite a typical, not a typical, but a startup a story where you randomly meet some people on a flight and you somehow pick it up from there, and that's how I think you all are, the founders and co-founders of the company. Quite interesting, I would say. And I think it's very important that we kind of work together and collaborate more and explore more opportunities. Well, thank you for sharing as to how you've been able to drive such significant initiatives within the company. And I think it's clear that your role has a very direct impact on both strategy as well as execution. Now, before we dive into specific topics, let's take a step back and look at the AI landscape at large. I think the AI industry has seen explosive growth in recent years, and I think thanks to advancements like machine learning, NLP, computer vision, and I think more such emerging technologies that we're seeing today. And in fact, I think AI is now integrated into almost every sector, whether you're talking about healthcare, finance, even marketing, etc., etc. But what's exactly driving this exponential growth? So if you can help us understand, what are your views if you're talking about the AI landscape at large?
Yep, sure. So I think that, look, this is one of these inevitabilities that kind of was always going to happen. But I think it's sort of sprung up on all of us as to how quickly it's happened. So there's a couple of things that I think about the landscape at all. First of all, it's vast, right? You mentioned multiple different things in your sort of opening remarks, which is to say that it goes everything from computer vision to machine learning to a variety of industries, right? So the first thing is that I think that every industry is going to be impacted by this in some way or the other. The second thing is I think that it's really important to kind of make sense of this in a simplistic way, because a lot of it can get very confusing very quickly. And considering I'm the least technical of the three co-founders that exist in the company, I need to dumb it down for myself first before I can even like comprehend what's actually going on. So the way I think about it is that the landscape at the moment, I like to think about it in terms of a framework. And I picked up this framework from a Goldman Sachs report, which basically talks about how these cycles in technology basically evolve. And the framework that they talk about is basically something called the IPA. So it's an infrastructure, platform, and application framework. And if you think about most technology cycles, most of them, if not all of them, have gone through these three stages. So at first, there's a very heavy capital intensive infrastructure cycle that kicks in, where you have to actually lay the foundations down for whatever technology that you're building. It needs to sort of have the underlying infrastructure in place so that other sort of businesses or actual business value can be built on top of that. From the infrastructure layer, you can then think about it as a platform layer. This is where, like, business values suddenly start coming into place, where ultimately businesses start to build uh, viable businesses on top of the infrastructure. And then finally, you have the application layer, which is where people and generally consumers and enterprises across the board tend to use these actual underlying technologies to actually derive a particular business output or derive a particular use case out of it. And I think that, as technology has increased or improved over time, the sort of cycle time between each of these layers has reduced dramatically. So you've seen the heavy investment in AI, which has probably happened for like the last 10 years or so. It just hasn't been in the limelight. All of a sudden, you've seen all of this capital flowing towards sort of the LLM companies like OpenAI, like Anthropic, etc. And the world's sort of looking at this saying, where and how is the revenue going to be, or how is the sort of business value going to be extracted out of it? I still think we are at a very, very foundational level still. We are starting to see some of the platform layers come out on top of this. Eventually, you're going to see an application layer that comes out on top of it, which actually helps you derive some of the value from this. And I think that sort of understanding where we are and how the sort of application layer and the platform layer sort of extricates itself from these business models, it's going to be really, really interesting and quite actually where the true value gets created. So I don't know if that sort of helped, but I kind of feel like that's where we are at the moment. And, it's a question of just a matter of time before we get to see the real business value of these businesses being created.
No, well, yes, definitely. And thank you for sharing such an insightful perspective about how the AI landscape is revolving and what are the different things that take into picture, come into picture when we are talking about deployment of AI across different verticals, I would say. Um, Now, I think we discussed about the growth of AI and its impact. But however, I think with all this growth, there comes complexity as well, because companies are now figuring out how to deploy AI strategically, making it scalable and efficient, while also ensuring that it's aligned with their business goals. And I think that brings us to our next topic as to like how companies or platforms like Realfast.ai are stepping into to bridge this gap for IT companies. So, can you highlight more on the Realfast .ai platform and how it is helping IT companies overall?
Sure. So, like I said, we are looking at uh, two predominant business value goals for IT services companies. Before I say what we are actually trying to build, the first thing I want to sort of make clear is that we feel that IT services companies are actually the backbone on what a lot of enterprises are actually functioning off. And I don't mean just what the IT companies are in terms of like building out enterprise software. Actually, IT services companies is effectively what makes the world kind of go around. And when you come from India and you come from an Indian context, you understand the value proposition, what an IT services company actually does. Because I mean, our entire middle class growth story has been built off the back of IT services companies like Infosys and Wipro sort of evolving over time. But when you go to the West and when you go to like sort of more developed economic markets, they don't seem to see the value of what is IT services companies, right? They just kind of assume that this is just an outsourcing hub. But first of all, it's a massive market. Secondly, there is a reason why a lot of these companies a lot of enterprise businesses end up sending a lot of their software development um, sort of projects to IT services companies is because internally they cannot actually execute this. And that's where IT services companies kick in. So what we've realized is that the way AI has sort of evolved, and if you look at the underlying sort of functionality of what an IT services company does, and the fact that it works off uh, text mainly, so from everything from coding to like sales is all text based. AI is definitely going to be something that can speed up and improve what IT services companies do currently. So what we are trying to do is that we have two main value propositions. The first one being is, can we help IT services companies deliver projects faster? And can we help them deliver projects with a higher quality in terms of output? And we feel that using AI, both of these things can be done more efficiently. So if you think about it, our sort of Vayu platform looks to sort of help IT services speed up their project, improve their timelines, improve scalability, and enhance higher quality. Technically, these three things put together should help the IT services companies derive higher margins as well as bake more revenue, because now you have a bench strength that is available and ready to attack project number 2, 3, and 4. We are focused initially on Salesforce because out of all of the sort of platform players that are there, like SAP or Oracle, etc., Salesforce is sort of the most foundational player in terms of being a pure play cloud platform based business. And we feel that the iteration times between sort of using the AI and getting the feedback loop sorted out is a lot quicker on Salesforce. So that's what we're trying to achieve. I think that we can go into this a little later, but there are significant complications and structural issues with what we're trying to solve. But I think that with the use of an AI tooling like what Vayu is, we definitely feel that we can increase the efficiency and quality of IT services firms.
That's pretty fascinating, and I think the Realfast.ai platform, the company seems to be playing a very pivotal role in streamlining IT operations for companies. And I think from what you have shared, it's clear that the tool Vayu isn't just about speed, but it's also about creating, efficiency and reliability at scale as well. I think I, in the IT world overall, I think one of the biggest challenges is maintaining agility while scaling operations, and that is where I think real fast comes into play. It is not just a solution that is helping you for AI deployment, but it's more of an accelerator for businesses looking to scale their operations quickly and efficiently. And I think when we are leveraging AI or AI driven insights for that matter, I think it kind of helps IT companies to streamline the processes that probably once took weeks or months to complete. So backing this up, can you help me with some of the real world scenarios or case studies as to how Vayu tool or the Real Fast has helped improve a client's decision making in the IT field?
Sure. So one very simple way that we've been able to help some of our design partners and customers is that uh, our first AI agent that we have in play that's built on top of our Vayu platform tackles unit testing, which is a very specific part of the entire delivery process for an IT services firm. What we've been able to develop is our agent working along with the human developer has effectively been able to improve the delivery time by two to three x. So if you think about a typical sprint process, which would last 10 sort of working days, our AI agent, which is sort of working on the unit testing pass, has been able to reduce that delivery time by 2 days. So now that work is getting been done in 8 days. That's just one example of what we've been able to do Of course, we're still very early in our product development and our platform development. And while unit testing is our sort of beachhead into the Salesforce ecosystem, we expect to expand horizontally into other parts of the sort of value chain. So again, because our sort of business proposition and our value proposition is to focus on not just speed but also on quality, what we've also been able to develop is that our agents don't get tired, right? So coding, as my co-founders like to say, coding is a craft, and being disciplined from a human perspective on executing that craft in a particular way and in a particular syntax takes a lot of discipline. Now, when you've trained an agent like the manner in which we have, the agent doesn't end up getting tired. They execute the task almost rote, right? So they are able to get the sort of syntax and the discipline down to a T. And that makes the overall quality of the code that much better. But what we are very clear about is that this is not something that is going to automatically do it, like take care of itself on its own. Like our agent doesn't go off and just write the unit test on its own. It has to work in conjunction with the human developer to make sure that the sort of feedback loop between the human and the AI is actually working real time to be able to deliver a sort of contextual based sort of output rather than just a very beautified way of writing code. So it's really important that they work together. Those are a couple of ways that our platform has been working.
That's great, and I think it's incredible to see how the platform has played a crucial role in enhancing the entire decision-making process for your clients. And I think when we hear about such real-world examples, it kind of highlights the more practical and tangible impact that advanced AI can have when it's integrated into the day-to-day operations. Now, let's shift gears a bit. I think let's explore more about what it takes to build an AI startup. I think the previous experience of being a venture capitalist can really help us give more insights into building up an entire AI startup, because AI startups are booming right now. Period. I think, but getting one off the ground is not as simple by just having like a very great algorithm. I think a lot of factors come into play when you're building a startup, and so you need the right technology stack, you need a proper environment, understanding the market fit, etc. And I think a lot of things. So what is the path to AI transformation? How can people really build a true agile and an impactful AI startup?
So yeah, I think the first place that I would start is that what's the business context that under which you're working, right? Because I think it's the technology is needs to be adapted to a business rather than the business adapt to the technology almost, right? Especially at the nascent stages at where we are at the moment. So I think the first thing is, do you come from a particular business background where you have identified what the inefficiencies are that you're looking to solve? Um, and AI is a massive sort of like a steroid to help you get to do something a little bit better and a little bit faster and a little bit more efficiently. So if there is a particular business niche that you have understood deeply and you think that there is an opportunity there, that's where I would start at first. So if you think about what we're trying to do at Realfast, right, we've picked two particular value propositions that we know has hampered IT services firms for time immemorial. Like if you can help an IT services firm deliver a project faster, nobody is going to complain. If you can help them develop a project with a higher code coverage or higher quality of code, nobody is going to complain. Neither is the end customer going to complain, nor is the IT services firm going to complain. So those are real world sort of not failure notes that a IT services firm has, but those are actual just problems that exist because of the nature of the work that they do. And using AI to sort of transform those particular problem sets is a great way to sort of just unlock business value. So I think that the first part is to seriously look at what you're trying to solve for. The second point is to understand where and how the AI is going to be able to uh, extract that business value. A lot of times, it's been in our sort of understanding and sort of exploration of the domain that a lot of time there's a lot of like fairly shallow use cases of what AI can do, and it's great. Like, I mean, the technology in itself is amazing, but ultimately, for you to use those open source kind of ideas on a enterprise level or on a business value level, you don't end up getting a lot of business value from it. I think the easiest analogy is to say that anybody who's writing a piece of content, chat gpt ends up becoming a great assistant. But when you ask and you're sort of communicating with chat gpt, a lot of times the actual information that you get out of it is not really relevant, or it goes off on a tangent. And that's when the skill of the human comes in to be able to say that, look, this is not going the right way, or this is not quite the right statistic. Can you help me drill it down further? uh, that is where the true value comes out of play. So I think that, like, having that contextual sort of business value is really, really important. So, it's never been easier to start a company in today's world, right? Also, I think that funding has always been something that has traditionally been a sort of blocker, but now that's also changed. And I think that if you can demonstrate contextual business sort of propositions using AI, even funding will continue to flow into the business.
I think you have really outlined the core elements that are needed for an AI transformation and touched upon some really key points for building an AI startup. And I think what really stands out to me is, having a proper business value, especially when you're talking about the ever-changing landscape of AI. So the other day, I was just going through one of the research papers, and it shows that around only just 12% of companies have a very mature AI strategy, and only 9% are confident in their governance of AI. And I think there's a long list that goes on with these numbers and some challenges. So I think the list of challenges in implementing and managing AI projects can seem very intimidating. So have you faced any certain challenges in the AI current landscape, and how do you intend to address them?
Of course, I think, look, we are ultimately trying to build a platform and a tool that, one, people are worried about, because logically, if you keep saying, I'm going to do something faster and better than a human can, the natural reaction to that is going to be that, oh shit, what happens to the human, right? But we are very, very, very particular that we don't believe that the human's ever going to be out of the loop. It's absolutely essential at this stage that the human's in the loop, and uses our technology to sort of derive a better product, or better experience at the end of the entire project. So I think the first kind of challenge you have to overcome is the trust issue, right? Can you actually build a platform that the IT services firm is going to be able to use, and they can trust to not make compounding errors or not make errors at all, right? That's the sort of challenge you have to overcome. The second challenge you have to overcome is the person that's actually using our agents. Are they feeling sort of intimidated? Are they feeling sort of insecure about the fact that this is something that's going to make them redundant? We don't believe it's the case, and a lot of our communication goes into sort of ensuring that we make it known that this cannot work without the human in the loop. uh, the third sort of major issue is also hallucinations, right? These things are not foolproof. These things are not 100% accurate all the time. And again, that sort of reiterates the stance that we have, that the human has to be in the loop. The human has to have the context of what they're building and what they're trying to solve for. And the AI can just help them speed up that entire process. So again, once you go through this iteration 3 or 4 times, and once the customers are able to understand how the actual platform works, then you overcome these challenges. But again, what that means is that that's another challenge in itself, because now the time that you need to go through to sort of invest in making sure that your customers are on board with you in a particular way is suddenly a lot longer. We expect this time to sort of shrink as this stack gets a little bit more mature. But at the moment, that's some of the challenges that we face. Um, and then there's the most important part of it, is just to say that, look, AI is this great tool, but if you don't actually have a very deep vertical understanding of the domain that you're in, then what ends up happening is that the ability for the enterprise to actually extract any real business value from your AI becomes limited. So they don't see the ROI of it at this point unless the AI is built within a particular context and a very narrow focus. Once you're able to derive that for them, then they can see the uplift, and that is going to be something that automatically enhances and encourages them to use it further. So I think that there are certain challenges that are very nuanced towards how AI can be used. And for sure, like if you give any enterprise a generic AI tool, there is very limited value that they can extract. And they sort of look at it as a toy at the moment and say, oh, it's great, but this is not really helpful. Until you can sort of give them domain specific expertise, that's when the real value comes out.
I think I very much liked your point of building that trust within entire ecosystem. I think because whether you're an entrepreneur or an IT professional or someone who is just curious about the AI landscape, there's definitely no doubt that this technology will continue to reshape industries and the world. But it's very important that you keep the trust factor very intact, and I think that's very important. And most of the companies are kind of trying to try to keep that side track, I believe. One
I mean,
last
just
question
going
for you.
back on your, hang on,
Yeah,
just before we go,
yeah.
one point on the trust thing, right? So I think that
Hmm.
trust is also a question of time. Because if you
Yeah,
think about it, like the original generation of IT sort of evolution that happened, everything had to be on premise, right? So if you were building, your tech stack and whatnot, everything was like pretty much had to be done on your site because you were so worried about data leakages and things like that. I mean, and then
right.
along came AWS and the whole bunch of cloud computing, where now it's actually very inefficient to have it on site. Most companies are very happy to build it on the cloud as long as it's a secure cloud, right? So that evolution of trust took a lot of time for that to be able to happen. But once it did, it unlocked a lot of value for everybody in terms of speed, in terms of just like, the amount of CapEx you have to do. So I think that like some of this is just a question of the adoption period kicking in. And some of it is also until you're able to derive business value to them, the trust doesn't get solved otherwise.
Well, yes, I completely agree with you, and I think in the years to come, we'll see more of these aspects and more new aspects coming into picture when you're talking about the evolution of trust. So, like I'm just coming to the last question that what are certain trends probably that you can predict or you think that will take over in the coming years when you're talking about AI and IT companies? And I think what do you think investors can do about it?
So look, I mean, I think investors are always going to be opportunistic and look at this space. And quite honestly, this is a revolutionary technology that is going to change the way people work and people basically function going forward. So that is very clear in our mind. Certain industries are going to be impacted more than others. And I think certain industries are going to, benefit massively from it. For example, you talked about healthcare. I think that the sort of ability for AI to sort of minimize and sort of get rid of some of the errors that the human eye can see is obviously going to be a lot higher. Like I mentioned, the discipline factor of something what AI can do that a human being maybe might get tired to do or may just get bored of doing. The AI doesn't end up having that problem. It can just continue to iterate on the same concepts over and over again. In the IT services space specifically, look, the entire IT services space is built on the back of text, from whether it's from sales to coding to any most 99% of the work is all done in text. So if you think about text and AI, it's actually the foundational level of what kind of change can actually end up happening. So I think that look, AI is here to stay. I don't think that I mean, it's going to make certain businesses much more efficient. It's going to expand markets. I don't think it's going to contract markets in any way. We believe that, like, if you think about like IT services being a like a 300, $400 billion industry, uh, uh, it's going to just expand astronomically. I mean, I think that we are very, very clear about that. I think that investors are obviously going to look at this with very, very keen interest. And if there is business value to be extracted from some of these models, then you definitely are going to see much more money flowing in. at the moment, I think that people are still hesitant to say that, okay, where's real business value going to come from? But if you can demonstrate business value to them, I think that both investors and enterprises would be very happy to adopt this.
Truly agree with you, and I think in the entire discussion that we had today, it's quite fair to say that the world of AI is vast and is rapidly evolving. From tools like Vayu that help IT companies scale with speed and efficiency to the entrepreneurial spirit that is required to launch a successful IT startup, I think the opportunities are endless. But with those opportunities also come challenges. It's important that business owners focus on understanding how to build a value driven business model, ensuring that the solution or the AI solutions provided are truly impactful. Well, thank you so much, Steve. It was a pleasure having you with us on a podcast. And I think we have spoken about AI deployment, how solutions like Vayu are helping IT companies transform their operations, and what exactly are certain things that are required to build a truly impactful AI startup.
Thank you. It was great to be here.
Thank
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Steve. So, this is for our listeners. Thank you for tuning in today's episode of Analytics Insight. Be sure to tune into our channel for more such insights into how AI is transforming industries across the globe. And you can view all our previous podcasts on Spotify and other leading platforms. Thank you so much.